Okay, his name's Lorne, L-O-R, and he...
Why don't you answer that goddamn phone? You haven't answered that phone until you called me earlier tonight.
It's funny, because I'd like to see him come to my house and try that shit.
Is there any way that I can talk to her?
You either have...
Took you long enough to be able to fucking get that voicemail to me, though, didn't it? No, I need the whole fucking story. I will tell you the whole fucking story.
Lorne is an icon in the TCAP community. Take, for example, the Church of Cawd, where fellow Lornographers gather and meme the fuck out of Lorne and other predators.
I am going to do something about them people in the fucking forum and all that stupid-ass Church of Cawd crap.
What is your full name? Lorne Armstrong.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this deep dive video into the strange world of Lorne Armstrong. Please keep in mind this is supposed to be an introductory video for those that don't know much / anything about Lorne or the Church of Cawd. I am not an expert Lorneographer. I don't claim to be, not by any means. I just have a passing fascination with this man and TCAP in general and his actions. I want to share it with people who maybe don't know much about him and poke a bit of fun. And also just have a nice little analysis. So, first of all, I should probably actually explain who he is. Lorne Armstrong is a complete and total piece of shit. Thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy, please. Lorne Armstrong is a terrible person, most famous for his arrest on Dateline NBC's To Catch a Predator. He is one of the most talked about and mocked predators in the entire history of the show, and even has his own mock religion called the Church of Cawd. So I think now is a good time to go and have a look at the final episode of To Catch a Predator, which was in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and aired in late 2007. The investigation in which Lorne was caught was the final ever episode of TCAP, taking place in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and airing on the 28th of December 2007. Only 7 men were caught in the TCAP portion of the sting. It was the only investigation that was not organised by Perverted Justice or Dateline, but was instead instigated by the Kentucky Bureau of Investigation. The lack of predators, the suicide in the previous episode, including the destruction of the cases against all of the predators caught in Murphy, Texas, and the ensuing $100 million lawsuit from Lewis Conrad's sister, and how expensive the show was to film, all meant that this was the last investigation that Dateline did. Because of this all meant that Lorne was one of the last great predators to watch, along with Dustin McFetridge and, to a lesser extent admittedly, Michael Joseph Patterson. Given all of this, let's have a look at Lorne Armstrong. To Catch a Predator was not Lorne's only dalliance with the law, as the man has a rather interesting history between him and justice. In 2006, he was arrested for a DUI when he drove into a house whilst drunk, attempting to downplay the incident by saying that he was a few sips over the limit and stating that the reason for him driving was because he didn't want his brothers walking home. Him not taking responsibility for his actions will become a running theme throughout Lorne's life. According to the alleged incident report that was found by Madame Ovaries at the Temple of TCAP, the car, which belonged to his potentially flew 15 feet in the air before hitting the house, which doesn't exactly look like it could withstand the full force of a car hitting it, if this is the actual house. Also, allegedly, nobody was wearing seatbelts, and one of his brothers was in the back of the truck at the time, so he nearly got several people killed via his drunk driving. To counter this though, it must be said that the report's authenticity has been disputed, thus this may not be 100% accurate as to what happened in the incident, but what we do know for certain is that he was arrested for a DUI pre-Dateline. However, this is not Lorne's only pre-TCAP crime, as he has openly admitted that he had swindled 30 grand, yes, 30,000 US dollars, from an elderly couple for renovation work that was never completed. You know, there used to be a show on British TV for people like this.
No, it doesn't. I don't really give a monkeys about other people and their kids. I just take their money and run.
And he has paid back, at the time of his last YouTube video, less than $100. Just, you know, $29,900 short of what he swindled them out of. A thief as well as a Nancy drunk driver. Whatever could be next. Fortunately, he committed no more crimes pre-Dateline, so that's going to be it for his pre-TCAP crimes. So let's talk about his confrontation with the pedo slayer, Chris Hansen. So Lorne's interview with Chris is very interesting. Just as a bit of background, Lorne was invited by Kayla, the decoy, and he kept demanding throughout the entire time that he was there that she give him a kiss. If you want to watch the uncut interview, I will leave a link in the description.
Seem pretty comfortable there.
Hi, sir.
How are you?
All right, how are you doing?
What's happening?
Not too much.
Not too much?
I absolutely adore the fact that Lorne's face drops like a lead balloon at a birthday party when Chris Hansen walks in.
So what are you up to tonight?
Not a whole lot.
By the way, I absolutely love that this has become a meme.
You want to explain yourself?
Not really. I never really was going to do anything.
Oh, I'm sorry, I guess you wrote the full-size D.H. Lawrence novel to say let's be friends. Lorne clearly knows her age.
It's supposed to be 13.
And knows that it's wrong.
37.
So him not taking any responsibility whatsoever is completely infuriating.
You tell her to delete her archives.
I didn't want her to get in trouble by her parents.
You can see in his face that he thinks that this is genuinely a good response because he thinks that he's showing that he cares for the decoy, whilst also just conveniently protecting himself. We see through your bullshit, Lorne.
What do you think ought to happen to you?
I think I should go to counseling to get off the internet.
In this instance, I would like to speak directly to Lorne Armstrong here. Genuinely. And I mean this from the coldest, dankest, nastiest piece of my heart. Fuck you, Lorne. Taking advantage of a person that you believe to be 13 years of age is a perverse and horrendous crime. I know that he probably said this to attempt to gain some sympathy and try to weasel his way out of trouble, but it is immensely infuriating, especially since, to this day, Lorne has, does, and will continue to deny taking any responsibility for his actions or admitting any guilt. I'm not usually one for long prison sentences, but yours was a joke. This may be a bit off topic, but predators like Lorne, by which I mean true groomers that spent countless hours attempting to manipulate a defenseless child for his own twisted and depraved pleasure and sexual fulfillment, deserve to be locked up for a long time, not the paltry, weak, insultingly short sentence that you were handed. If, and thanks to TCAP it was only an if, a 13-year-old child had actually been the victim, they would have definitely remembered that encounter for the rest of their entire life. So why shouldn't the punishment be at least partly reflective of that?
Your story on
He said it! He said it!
I just want to make this point because I want to make it very clear that throughout this video, there may be bits where I may be seen as sort of defensive towards Lorne, especially when we get to the Ramona tapes. But I just want to make sure what he did here was vile, and he absolutely deserved his prison sentence. So that was the interview that was on TCAP. Like I said earlier, before my rant, I will leave a link in the description if you want to watch both the TCAP interview with Lorne and also the uncut Chris Hansen interview with Lorne. I need to find a good way to segue into his chat log now. Referred to as the Holy Lornography by the Church of Cawd, Lorne had a, and I'm not joking, 407-page chat log between him and the decoy. This is an absolutely ludicrous size, with it being about the same size as a phone book. Just take a moment to process that. This grown man had a chat with a year 8/7th grader that was over twice as big as the script for the first Lord of the Rings film. Given that in films, one page is approximately 1 minute when it comes to a script, this chatlog would be 6.7 hours. That's about the same time as all of the Star Wars prequels without the credits. You could drive from London to Newcastle and then put on Kung Fu Panda and still have time left. 407 pages is a ridiculous amount. It's what I'm trying to get at. If you want to have it read to you, then Threat Level Midnight has made a reading of it, and I'll link off to the playlist in the description if you want to watch it. Just a heads up, it is well over 12 hours long, so I would recommend saving the address and maybe putting it on during a long flight or something. Now, is this chat the worst chat log in the history of TCAP or Prefer to Justice? No. Is it even close? Not at all. Is it absolutely supremely hilarious? Absolutely. And with all the talk of Mr. Penis meeting Miss Vagina, it is muy bueno. What wasn't hilarious was his interview with the police. Like almost everybody else that appeared on TCAP, Lorne has an interview with the police that can be watched on YouTube. I'll leave a link. But it's quite boring to watch. And Vince Nicotra, I thought you were in jail. Wait, no, you can't clop up. You can't. During the interview, Lorne mostly just cries and then admits to what the cops are asking him to admit to. And then, after he's admitted to pretty much everything, only then does the absolutely Einstein brain ask for an attorney. I would personally recommend against wasting your time watching the interview, but if you truly care to watch 20 minutes of sobbing and useless information, I'll leave a link to the description. But like I said, personally, I'd rather keep those 20 minutes of my life and do something useful with them. After being caught by the bastards in blue, Lorne was charged with interstate travel with the intent of sex with a minor, attempted sexual contact with a minor, and attempting to produce child pornography because they found a camera in his car. For these 3 felonies, Lorne received a combined sentence for a whopping 7 years in prison. Placed on probation for life, which doesn't particularly matter because he's broken it so many times without going to jail, and a lifetime registration as a sex offender. During the case, Lorne tried to get the bracelet thrown out as evidence because, and I'm directly quoting him here, it's crap. But obviously that did not work. On the rather sound advice of his attorney, he pleaded guilty, but would later claim, in an appeal at court, whilst trying to get his sentence overturned, that, due to perceived poor counsel, his conviction should be overturned. He was unsuccessful there as well. Whilst in prison, Lorne wrote a book called Taken Abroad.
Lorne actually wrote a book in prison. The name of the book is Taken Abroad. It's $25, and if you...
And was met by... mixed reception. Overall, the book, which I am not going to pay any money for, and am definitely not reading, seems to be a way for Lorne to express his sick fantasies about banging a child, and he does not have a good grasp about what war and PTSD does to a person. Now let's go from something he made that I can't view to something he made that I can view. After his release from prison, Lorne started a YouTube channel. The channel started off as mostly Lorne singing some songs, some original, some already established. A fun fact, Lorne believes that he could be a professional singer, apparently based on the reaction he gets when he's singing karaoke, but I shall let you decide whether that is the case or not. None of his videos have more likes than dislikes, which is surprising to me because I thought the internet loved sexual predators. Lorne eventually transitioned his content from singing to a personal vlogging and cooking channel. He's even listed as a cooking, vlogging and singing YouTuber and Wikituber, all whilst being unable to find a camera that wasn't a potato with a hole in it. His personal videos are... they're something else, man. Like, it seems to show that he blames his siblings for what happened on TCAP because... and I really wish I was joking. partly because they didn't give him deviled eggs and mac and cheese.
I never saw the meatballs, I never saw the deviled eggs, and I never saw the macaroni and cheese.
However, there was a supposed hidden influence on his channel, something that would lead to the first TCAP schism, one of only 2 to date, the other being Chris Hansen and Vincent Nicontria, who, fun fact, is now in prison, going on a copyright spree and the community deciding which one of those 2 was to blame. But the hidden influence would turn out to be the woman known only as Ramona. During some point in 2017, whilst his YouTube channel was still active, Lorne was approached by a person pretending to be a black woman called Ramona. This was a catfisher who caused the first TCAP schism. Many in the community were against catfishing the man and hunting him down. The other side claimed he deserved it. Some people even turned up to his house. Lorne claims that he knew he was being catfished the entire time, but that is not believed by large swathes of the community and would not particularly align with his actions nor his words. Here is a thread discussing the topic that I will leave a link to in the description. Now, this catfishing is extremely complicated due to YouTube taking down most of the calls for privacy reasons and most of the community going to war about what happened, who was in the right, and where to go from that point. What I can say for certain is that there are still portions of calls with Lorne Armstrong on YouTube that reveal a great deal about him as a person and his thought process in general. Take this video for example, where Lorne denies that he was going to the Sting house for sex and insists that Dateline NBC were responsible for luring him there.
I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to have sex with her.
But why did you even go over there, sex or otherwise? Why?
I don't know, because I didn't want to go there. And on the way there, I wanted to turn around.
Or this video, where he gets extremely possessive over Ramona because she has a guy friend. Also, Ember Infierno and Sam Pendleton were brought in to help Ramona, and that caused a bit of controversy in itself. Ember, from what I can tell, is not well liked in the TCAP community, and it seems, again, not an expert on this subject, to stem from her trying to sabotage any catfish attempts on Lorne, not because of the kindness of her heart, but more to have sole control over him doxing people and manipulating Lorne into filing false police claims against people that she does not like or agree with, or that she perceives as a threat. There is a whole lot more out there if you want to search for it, but most calls are terrible quality, surprisingly on Lorne's end, and are all really long and keep getting taken down. All these videos will be linked in the description to give you a bit more of a taste, but there's so much footage out there, but it's all jumbled up, hard to look for, and you kind of had to be there for quite a bit of it. There's some stuff on the Temple of TCAP as well, so I'll leave as much as I can in the description. Lorne was arrested and sent to Piscataquis County Jail in August 2019 after failing to complete his sex offender rehabilitation class because he refused to take any responsibility for his actions and violating his probation by appearing at the class drunk at least 5 times from 2014 to 2019. More info can be found on this Reddit post by For Better or Worse. I'll leave a link, as with anything of interest, within this video. Funnily enough, one of the first things that Lorne did after his release from prison involved a court. Remember earlier when I said that Lorne complained about his public defender? Well, that was connected to a $40 million lawsuit for deprivation of rights, invasion of privacy, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and negligence. The part about the deprivation of rights, aka Lorne's 42 USC section 1983 claims, were immediately dismissed, but everything else was allowed to move forwards. He claims that he was lured to the Sting house and that he initially refused but was pestered into accepting the invitation, therefore it wasn't his fault. Everybody say it with me now. Lorne was unsuccessful in his claim. He has a public registered sex offender profile with some information on it that could be seen as too much information or not. Again, this is your choice. And to anybody claiming that I'm violating his privacy, This is literally the second result that you get when you Google his name. So in the end, what did we learn? Lorne is an interesting character that probably deserved his stint in prison, and quite possibly a lot more. He is a delusional, noncy prick who tried to solicit sex from a 13-year-old girl who was defenseless against his manipulation, but also potentially a victim, not from Dateline NBC like he ridiculously claims, but from regular people in the TCAP community, some of which had turned up to his house. However, you could believe that his 407-page chat log, his very serious crime, his irresponsibility, his homophobia, and his sexism could all be seen as justification for what's happened to him. Overall, this all could have been avoided if he'd have just spent his birthday blowing out candles instead of trying to marry a 13-year-old child. And that was an introduction to Lorne Armstrong. Thank you all for watching. If you did enjoy, please leave a like, comment and subscribe. I know this is a little different to, well actually I suppose it's very different to the content that I usually release, but I enjoyed making it, I enjoyed researching it. I hope you enjoyed it or not. Like I said, I'm not an expert lornographer, so some of this stuff could be false. I may have misrepresented some things. If so, I do sincerely apologise. That was not my intention. But I want to give a special thank you to these websites and people. The TCAP wiki page, a lot of the information came from there. Bam Books A Million, they're the people that were supplying all of the reviews for Lorne Armstrong's Taken Abroad. The Temple of TCAP, fantastic website, so many beautiful things on there. Speaking of which, I'd like to thank Madam Overy's on there. Lorne vs NBC, whoever put together the summation document that's online rather than the big legal case that I would have had to read otherwise. Thank you for that. For Better or Worse on Reddit, very useful. Wikitubia and Boston Cap, who has done a very comprehensive timeline on the Temple of TCAP. Highly recommend you go and watch it. But yeah, like I said, thank you all for watching. I want to do some other stuff on this topic. I'm not going to turn into a TCAP channel, but I am fascinated by some of the things that happened. I only have one other video in mind, and that's surrounding Lewis Conrad and the end of TCAP, which I thought could be very interesting to cover, especially after hearing some of the stories. But that's going to be it. Thank you. And also, I just can't watch another episode of Too Hot to Handle. I will get round to doing episode 4, but my god, that show just absolutely drains you. Jesus wept.